Hey guys, in this video I'd like to talk to you guys about generic importers, a new feature that we're working on right now. Generic importers are essentially a way of describing an import process and all sorts of proceduralism that comes with that import process in a graph. So you guys might be familiar with import processes in pieces of software such as Maya or AEC packages. And there usually when you do file import, you get a dialog and there's some options and that's it. And you can't really do anything to the data anymore. You sort of have to work on the data later. So what we're proposing here is basically a procedural rule-based approach that you can use on data while it's being imported. So let's have a look at this example quickly and see what's going on. So what we see here is a bunch of small nodes. You can see on the left we have a file browser that just gives us access to a file path. Then we've got our OpenURBS file format node. So this is the node that will give us all the information that is inside of the OpenURBS file. And then we have a bunch of more nodes. So one of the first things to notice here is that the only file format specific node, so the only thing which is not generic, is the OpenURBS node. This is a node that might as well be using FBX or Lembic or things like USD in the future. But really, it's only the reader. It's the importer object that sort of gives you access. Then this will give you access to these objects. And the objects are an array of basically table of contents. So this is what's in the file. It has not yet imported the whole file. It's more said, this is what's in the file. Before you import, do something to it. And then what we have here is a small filter node. So this node is using a block inside of Canvas to perform a filter per object. So right now, you can see if we double click on it, there's a bunch of things we can do here. So we can filter, in this case, by color and brightness. So if I lower this, you can see how now we're filtering out objects. So I'm just going to take the really dark objects. So if I zoom in here a little bit, you can see now we're getting just the dark objects. We can also just get the bright objects by erasing this up. So we can just say just these guys. And this will allow me to sort of only get certain elements in the file, as you can see here. So it's really a way of saying, I can import just what I want. However, this is not a prescribed feature. This is something that you can build. So in the graph here, if we dive into the filter, you can see that what we're actually doing is we're getting access to a property color on the object and then converting that to HSV and then doing some logic to sort of decide if this particular object should stay in the group or not. So in other words, you can design these features and you can build them up. And there's going to be a follow-up video that shows some of this stuff inside of Unreal Engine 4. So there you'll see how we're using it. So one of the last things to note here is the draw node. And this node is just there for you to debug to see if your import is doing the right thing. So you can double click on it. It has a lot of different features. So you can go ahead and see, just show me the bounding boxes, show me axes of all the different objects. Show me things in shaded mode. You can look at labels, so you can have a look at different things there. And there's some more additional options like wireframe mode and others that allow you to sort of debug your import quickly. In this example, we're looking at a different kind of filter. So what this is doing is filtering objects based on its volume. So you can see it's has not yet parsed the shapes. It's really just loaded the bounding boxes and material colors. And if you dive into the filter, you can see what's happening here is we're basically multiplying up, we're computing the volume of the bounding box. And that way we can just get tiny objects. You can see if I lower this, we're just going to get really small objects. If we go to the upper end, we're only going to get the large objects. So it's really a way of saying, we can design exactly the feature that we need for our import using a graph. On top of filtering out objects, we can also perform changes. So one of the things we can do here, for example, is merge objects. So this is this helicopter tail blade that we've seen before, 3 of them in fact. And we're currently looking at the bounding boxes of all the objects. So if we switch this draw diverse to shaded mode, we'll see the 3 of them. So there they are. Right now, if we switch back to box, you'll notice that there's a lot of boxes, and this is because these are all separate objects. Now, for certain scenarios, that might not be what we want. So we've added a node here, it sits here, which will be able to merge the shapes based on several different features. So what I'll do is I'll just switch from mode none to all, and then this will merge everything into one big piece. So if we just have a look again at the shape, you'll see that now we sort of lost the different materials and everything. It's applied to first material because our graph isn't smart enough to be able to sort of apply materials per object here, but it's merged everything into one shape. But maybe that's not what we want. Maybe we want to merge, for example, based on the material that something had. So we'll say merge by material, and now it looks the same. However, if we switch back to box, you will be able to see that now we just have boxes for each of the material groups, so we have way less objects. This, of course, also works with other file formats that we support. So we have support for OBJ, FBX, Alembic, and we're going to be looking into USD in the future. Now, in this example, we're looking at a building coming from FBX, and you can see that this is the FBX node feeding directly into the draw traversed. We can switch this over to shaded to see the geometry, and of course the system also supports materials and textures, so you just go ahead and switch this to texture to see the textured version. On top of that, you can also use the draw traverse to look at some labeling information. So if we go up here and enable labels name, for example, we'll be able to see all the labels and all the names of objects. So you can see up these guys are called circles and other objects are called cube and node and whatnot. Now we can, if we were to import just these guys up here, or we want to remove them, we could then start filtering out. So to get some more nodes, I'll just use a new feature in the current branch called Reveal in Explorer, which will show me where this preset originates. And then you can see that there's some more nodes here under importers. So one of the things we have is filters. So we'll just use a filter by path for now. Plug this in and then type in circle. And this is then only going to give us all the circle objects up there. On top of just loading files and sort of filtering out things and merging things, we can also create new things. So what we're looking at here is a empty import, so just an import structure which is not based on a file, which creates a new shape type and then creates new instances and then distributes them across using a graph. So you can see this is, you're able to sort of say how many you want and place them. What's important to understand here is that this import logic will then work in all the target environments and will actually create a proper scene that has all these elements in them. Here's another procedural scene. This one loads an FBX file. So if we zoom in here a little bit, you can see it's using the FBX importer and then getting all the objects, filtering them by type, so getting all the shapes. And then it's creating new objects of type instance and placing these using one of the nodes that we had already, which is the scatter node. So with this graph, you can basically import things onto a plane and scatter them. So we can drive how many we have, and we can drive what this plane looks like, and we can drive the seed. So this means this is a new tool to distribute things, and you can of course think about vegetation systems or other things that you could build as an importer that you'll then be able to use in your target application. And this is a really powerful concept for expressing scene proceduralism. As usual, thanks a lot for your attention and let us know what you think. Cheers.